In Afghanistan at this point of time, we're joined in by Mohammed Shafiq, who's the CEO of the Ramadhan Foundation, who's joining us live from the United Kingdom. Mr. Shafiq, thank you very much indeed for joining us in this broadcast on WION. And let me begin by asking you this. We've witnessed the scenes of complete chaos that are unfolding in Afghanistan. The Americans claim that they had a strategy to in fact exit, but they seem to have messed up whatever strategy that they had.
Yeah, this is a key indication of the failure of US foreign policy for the last 20 years. Afghanistan was occupied for many, many years, and they had an opportunity there to have an exit strategy. And what we've seen, the chaos in the last 24, 48 hours in Afghanistan determines that has been an abject failure. They spent $2 trillion, 300,000 Afghan soldiers were trained by United States and NATO forces. And in the end, they had no backbone. They weren't able to defend their territory and defend their country. And then you see the fleeing president and vice president flee the country. I just think it's an appalling dereliction of duty to leave your own people, the people who elected you to lead, off the battlefield and run to safety yourself. As we've seen, I think he's in Oman now, Ashraf Ghani. I think is an appalling situation to be. And now it's about how can we protect human life? How can we protect international interest and make sure that the order around human rights and respect and civility is restored to Afghanistan? And that's something which obviously the world will need to keep an eye on.
Absolutely indeed. Now, the Taliban were in power in Afghanistan between the years 1996 till 2001. They were virtually an international pariah who were recognized only by Pakistan, Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. This time round, now that they've taken charge of Afghanistan, do you think they'll have greater global recognition because the Americans have negotiated a peace deal with them?
Yeah, I think that's really important. This time round, they are learning the lessons from what happened last time. They're making sure that they have that international legitimacy on the international community. And for them to be able effectively to be a government to run Afghanistan and have influence in the international community in terms of investment and the economy and jobs and prosperity, they're going to have to make sure that they're connected with countries in the wider region, but also internationally. And that is something that the United Nations and other nations should look at. It has to be an Afghan-led process. It's going to be something which the Afghan people determine.
And also, Mr. Shafiq, the crux of this war, essentially the Afghan war has been described by many people as a war on women. The Taliban, with their very hardline ideology, had prevented girls from going to schools to get educated. They had prevented women from going out to work. Do you think the Taliban has changed at all? Although the Taliban, for its part, claims that they are now going to be different this time around, do you think in the manner in which the Taliban will now govern Afghanistan, women will have rights that would be different from what they had during the time of the Taliban between 1996 and 2001?
Well, Mohammed, I think if you look at what's happening in Doha and you look at the international political bureau of the Taliban and the response that you saw from the international spokesman yesterday, you do see a different type of rhetoric. But the reality is somewhat different on the ground. As your reporters have been reporting all day, there is a real sense that people are fearful. People, women, children, minority communities, including the Hazara Shias, who've been oppressed for so many years, are real fearful about their lives. And we've got those promises from the Taliban that they'll protect property, they'll protect human life. As I said, we've got to make sure that we keep up the pressure and we hold them to account on that.
Now, the Taliban predominantly are a group that is essentially Pashtuns who've now seized control of the power in Afghanistan. But Afghanistan is a very diverse nation. Now, will Taliban bring about an administration that is inclusive, or do you see the Taliban wanting to unilaterally control the whole nation?
I think there's a real sense yesterday that we could have seen a transition government, but the abject failure of the Afghan government and the Afghan military to give up power so easily obviously leads to the conclusion that the Taliban won't support a transitional government. They want to impose their form of government on the Afghan people. And that's going to be inclusive. using the levers of power through the Qataris, through the Pakistanis, through the Indians, all of the international community coming together to actually say, well, this is going to be driven by Afghanistan. It's going to be an Afghan solution, but more importantly, it's going to be inclusive. And I think that's the aspect that has been missing from President Joe Biden's rush to get out of the country. That this is their mess. This is the United States and the United Kingdom's foreign policy demonstrating to the world its abject failure and disregard. That they're so desperate that they're in this situation where they're fleeing from a country that they've supported for the last 20 years. And that, for me, is a real big worry. Where does the security situation develop, and what is the consequences of a Taliban government in Afghanistan on the international community and the rise of terrorism in countries around the world?
Absolutely, indeed. We'll have to leave there. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Shafiq.